Welcome to Fox One Gal Stories. I like to tell a story about my words. I know this might sound a bit silly, but let me see where this goes. Remember, I have no fancy title after my name or a paper that says I'm qualified to do this. So let's just call it a story. I'm just sharing some ideas here and they are there for the taking. Or please feel free just to turn this off. We would not have one single book if we didn't have words. That would be a nightmare for me. I love books. I also like to say I practice being impeccable with my words, and I had to practice this over and over and over again. I can't remember when I actually started to do this, but I'm still doing it the best I can. That is for sure because I've seen some interesting benefits that have come from doing just this. Can words change our reality? Can a word change who you are? Word has so much power. Wars have been fought over them. A word can cast a spell. Words can do magic. Don't worry, I'm not about to teach you a magician's trick or say anything like that. But maybe by having a deeper understanding of the way we use our word can empower us in many ways and shift the way people react to us. This in turn will shift the outcomes of many of our situations, making our lives a bit easier and a little bit more pleasant. Words can do so much. I love them since I do write. Sometimes it's not about the word, but what it does. Word can be an art form, and when I write, it is my art, and I want my words to paint a picture of life and spirit, which is limitless to me. And I know I can't really capture it with a word. Or if you sing, you have to use words to do that. Or like a poet who writes a poem. It's not about the words, but what's in between the word or the lines. It's like a feeling or a picture. Sometimes one word cannot capture what we're trying to say. Sometimes a painting can do that. What does it mean to me to be impeccable with my words? It means I'm not using word against myself or others. I want to use my words to communicate with my fellow humans in a direction of truth and love. So let's take a look at how we communicate with one another, or our stories we tell one another, as I like to call it. And maybe by calling it a story, that can give us that opportunity just to step back and ask some questions. I suggest to folks just to take a look at why we're sharing our stories. Is it to support one another, or is it to hurt someone? Do you ever stop and wonder why we say the things we say to people? If we put 1,000 words out per day and our words created our reality, how many of them have been spoken with true purpose? Do you know anybody like this who just likes to talk just to hear themselves talk? Or are we talking just to fill up space and time because maybe we're uncomfortable with silence? If there's nothing to be said in the moment, can you just enjoy being in the presence of someone else? There's a lot we can communicate without saying a word, just with a smile or holding someone's hand. How many times have you found yourself getting impatient with someone because you felt they were taking forever to get to the point? Kind of like what I am doing here. Do you often feel rushed to tell people about yourself and your story? When someone tells you about something that has happened to him or her, does it trigger a similar experience in you that you have to share? How many times have you asked someone, "How are you doing?" only to regret asking? We just gave someone an opportunity to start telling a story that we may not even be interested in. Or look at how many times we aren't finished sharing what we want to say and the other person is already talking. We may even find ourselves doing this at times. I know I sure did. When we're anxious to tell someone our story, would it not be a good idea to ask ourselves why? Do we want to tell it because we think the other person really wants to know? Maybe we want to tell it because we think our story is better than anything they've heard before, or more important. Or perhaps we're telling it to get an emotional reaction out of others. Another aspect of speech that we might want to become aware of is the type of emotions that are sent along with our words. Often people are affected by the tone of the message than the message itself. Whenever we speak, there's an emotional component that is transmitted along with our words. And if you don't believe this, if we speak in like a sarcastic tone like "thank you," "whatever," what kind of responses do you get? When we speak like this, most folks usually go into defense mode against us. So here were some things that were shared with me so I could become a little bit more impeccable with my words. Try putting yourself in silence for a day. See what it feels like not to have to be talking all the time. If this isn't possible, why not only respond when absolutely necessary? I tried this one for a couple weeks. Boy, that was so much fun. Okay, it was really hard, but the end results were, well, quite interesting. Like I say, don't believe what I say. Put what I say to the test. For one day, promise yourself you won't give an opinion unless it's asked for. This was a big challenge for me. I love opinionating all the time, and I still like to do this. But I took one day out of the week to do this, and for a while, one day turned into more days. And now I tend not to give my opinion on personal issues unless I am asked. Then, when I am asked, I am very careful with what I share. I want to come from a place of love and compassion and not pity, and making sure it's pretty simple and clear. And letting the other person know it's just an opinion, that it would be better if they figured it out. Most of the time, we are doing our best to use our word kindly and create a lovely world. But other times we use our words to hurt one another. One example would be insults. In an argument, we often take the other person's point of view, and our self-importance gets the better of us. We end up saying things to justify our position out of our need to be right, and in turn regret those words later. It's important for me to put my self-importance way down, as I like to call it, and this does take practice, and put my awareness radar up. I've been saying this for a while. Our awareness is our best defense. Think about this. Look at one way someone can try and hurt you. If someone knows something that we have said or done that was not impeccable, I'm at a place where I know I really can't change how someone else thinks about me, and I really have no desire to do this. I can pretty much stand behind what I say and admit when I mess up. But before I got to this place, I would remind myself, when you're about to share something personal with someone, just consider this, how other people know what they know about you. Many times we disclose something to a friend, only later others are aware of what we have said. And of course, the original story you may have told grows into many different stories based on the person you shared it with. It can be affected by their ideas in their head, their belief systems, and their own judgments. Remember when we were kids, did you ever play that game where you whispered two words in someone's ear, and by the time it got to the end, the words had changed? So when you're about to share something personal about yourself with someone, just make it as simple as possible. Why would we want to hurt someone purposely and use our words to hurt someone? Revenge is a good example. Feeling that we must get back at someone is a reflection of our self-centeredness. When we are talking to one another, it's a good idea to do our best to get our messages across as clearly as possible, so that others will have the greatest chance of comprehending us. But if we feel embarrassed or ashamed or uncomfortable about what we want to say, this may cause us to beat around the bush. And if you do that, just be ready for that person to misinterpret what we have to say. I like to say I'm 100% responsible for the words I use and how I use them. I'm not responsible for the way that people hear them or interpret them. However, on my side, it's a good idea for me to take responsibility for my messages or the stories I tell and make them as unmistakable as possible. So I did take that time to look at my words, and I even looked at those so-called trigger words. You know those words, the ones that make you mad or upset. So if I was having a negative reaction to a word, I just stopped using it, and my vocabulary became very small. I took this as a sign to look to see what my mind was saying, or a program I had attached to a word, and before I used it again, I would redefine it in a way that would support me and those around me. I encourage everyone to do this. Ask yourself, how are you defining a word? And don't be afraid to redefine words. When I'm describing something like love, life, spirit, it can be a challenge because these things to me are infinite, and defining them kind of puts them in a box. And some things you just cannot put in a box. I have called my mind my worst enemy in life, and I knew I had to overcome my need to be right and end this war. After all, I still need the mind. The best I could do was to convert it into a lifetime assistant by looking at my words and how I was using them. I still wonder these days why the English language has been crafted the way it has been. Who created this language? It has so many challenges to it. I can't help but wonder why. And I know there is so much more to this story, but we'll save that for another time. Fox One Gal, over and out. Until next time.